Welcome back to SharePoint Charts Complete Training. Today we're going to look at the heat map chart. This is a chart that helps you visualize concentrations of data. This is a familiar concept to us because this is the same kind of concept we see when we see the weather and we see the different colors that correspond to temperatures. That's what the concept comes out of. We're going to take an Excel workbook with some training data and load that to understand how the concept works. So let's go ahead and jump in. Go ahead and get to the heat maps section in your SharePoint Charts Complete Training site, and you'll see an example right away. So the idea is that we have a spectrum of colors ranging from low to high, and those correspond to the values. And what this helps us to illustrate is clusters of values where there's low, versus the ones where there's clusters of values that are high. That's what it's helping us to visualize. So to get started, what we first need to do is go ahead and download our Excel workbook, and we're going to create a list from that. I've already downloaded mine, and also need to open up my SharePoint Charts training site. So I'm going to go ahead and open my workbook. That's simply called Support Tickets. And I've got my workbook open here. I need to enable editing. And then the next thing I'm going to do is go to the Table Design tab and click Export. Export table to SharePoint list. And now I need to paste in the name of my charts training site. So I'm just going to copy and paste that into Excel. And I'm going to name my new list according to my workbook name, so I'll just call it Support Tickets. Click Next. It'll confirm your data types. So we've got a text field for the first column and number fields for the others. That's exactly what we want. Click Finish, and that's it. Okay, so we can go ahead and close the workbook. We don't need that for the remainder of this training. So now I need to go to my site contents and locate that newly created list called Support Tickets. There it is. Click on that and open it. And then the first thing I do when I get to a list that's been created from Excel is I go into the Gear List Settings, go to Advanced Settings, scroll to the bottom, and then we want to turn off the Quick Property Editing. That's what makes it default to that grid mode. So I'm going to turn that off and select New Experience. Now I can go back to my grid view. And I'm also going to remove that first column. I don't need to see that. So if I click on Add Column, I can show or hide. I'm going to remove Type. I don't need to see that. That's not helping us in any way. And then what I like to do is create my view that I'm going to use for my formatting. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to do Save View As, and I'm going to call it Heat Map. There we go. I'm going to edit that current view and just hit Save. The reason I did that is so I can get my friendly URL up at the top, and I want to link that from my home page. I'm going to add yet another tile. So I'm going to edit and click Add a Link, from a link, paste, and add. I want that to be called Heat Map. And I have an idea of what kind of icon I want. I want to see a flame or fire to correspond to that word. Oh, there we go. And then I'm going to close this, click on the link, and move that down to be our last item, and I can republish my page. And now I've got a handy way to just jump right to this chart that I'm getting ready to build. Okay, at this stage we're ready to open our template. So there's a link to the heat map template. You just click on that, and that will open your page for you. And first, let's take a look at what we're doing. So you could apply this to any kind of a grid of data. It works well in situations where there's a range of ages or a range of time. In this case, what we're demonstrating are the hours of the day and days of the week, and we're keeping a tally. We're keeping a count of the number of support tickets that are coming in based on those time frames. I'm sure you would agree, when I look at this right now, it's not showing me in a visual kind of way those high and low numbers. Generally I can sense that, but that's the whole idea of this heat map, to demonstrate that. By the way, I just made those columns narrower, and to save those changes I can just hit OK. So we're going to apply that heat map onto these columns. Now, one thing that's different about this template, it is a column template, and that means whichever settings we pick, we're going to apply that across multiple columns. So this is going to look at those values and then apply a color to each of those cells according to that. So right away you're going to notice one critical setting, the minimum value and maximum value. We need to have an idea of our data set in terms of what our minimum and maximum is going to be. So I do need to do a quick scan of my data, and what I'm interested in particular is, for my data set, is there a min and max for that that's going to match up well with what I'm doing. So nothing's less than 0, but I do have it going all the way down to 0, so that's my minimum. That one's pretty easy. Now I'm kind of scanning my data to see what the max is going to be. And that's going to be the range I'm working from. I see 167. I see a couple of those, in fact. I'm just kind of scanning the data to see if I've got any outliers that are beyond that. Based on my quick scan, it looks like I don't have anything that really goes beyond 167. I'm going to set a high end for my data range at 200. So I can just key that in to this field. I'm saying my max is 200. And then that's about it. I can go ahead and apply my template. Another option here is whether or not you want to allow for inline edit. You'll see what that means in a second. It allows users to edit data directly in the list view. It's optional whether you're going to use that or not. You'll see how that works in 1 second. So in this case, what I need to do is go to the column headers and then column settings, format this column, advanced mode, select all, paste, and save. And there you go. So you can see some color values, and now you see what the inline edit does for you. Okay, if you don't want people to inline edit, then just uncheck that field. So I will go ahead and uncheck that for my next one. So in order to do what I want, I need to apply this template across multiple sections. So I'll go ahead and replace that. And then what I need to do is close this and just come right across through all my columns and do exactly the same thing. Format the column and just paste in over and over again. And it's going to use the same rules so that I can get my complete heat map. So I do advanced mode, select all, paste. And now you see some different numbers showing up. That's because those are higher number values. That's exactly what we expect. I'm going to format this column. Advanced mode, save, and I got 3 more to do. So I just come from left to right across all the columns. Format this column, advanced, paste, 2 more. Column settings, format this column, advanced, and paste. 1 more. Format this column, advanced, and paste. There you go. So what is that helping us understand? The dark blue is where there's really low numbers. Basically, in our case, that means low activity. There's not a lot going on. Whereas in the middle of the week, in the middle of each of those weekdays, we have high activity. We have high numbers, and now we have color backgrounds that help us see those clusters. This could be useful to me. It would help me with capacity planning. Maybe I need to have extra staff ready to handle that based on these trends where you get high traffic for help tickets. You have lots of calls to handle, and based on this kind of chart, I can anticipate that and understand some of those trends and plan for that in terms of my staffing. So that's an idea of how this heat map can be beneficial to you. Now in the configuration settings, you have additional options. The hover color refers to if you're using the inline edit, that makes it so when you hover over that, it gives the user a clue that they can edit the values. That doesn't mean anything if you turn off inline edit. Of course, you can adjust font sizes. Maybe you want to make those numbers look a little bit bigger. And then, of course, you can also additionally modify your font family, if you want to do stuff like that. There's settings also for opacity. This basically makes it trend more towards a white color. It makes it semi-transparent. So if you like the color set but you want it to be a bit lighter, what you can do is move the opacity slider down from the default, which is 10, down to something smaller, like a 7 or a 6, and that will just lighten up that particular color set. You've got 12 options here, and these are paired. So the way this works, the first value is what's indicated, blue to red, and then you always have the reverse, going the reverse direction. And depending on what kind of data you're working with, you may want to do that in reverse. From there, we've got just a white to blue and the reverse, and then white to red and reversed, then green. And then we've got some interesting options with a series of 3 colors. So next we go to green to yellow to red. That's a very common setup in heat maps. I definitely recommend checking that out. And then we have red to yellow to green. And then the last one actually goes to all the way dark to a black background for that max value, or the reverse if you flip the colors that way. So you've got lots of interesting options there. And I say if you want to lighten that up a little bit, you can use this opacity slider to get a little bit lighter effect on your series of colors that you're using. So that is it. You know everything that you need to for your heat map. One thing I would like to note, the minimum value can be a negative value. So if you need to do that, just go ahead and apply according to your data range. You just need to be aware by looking at your data set what those data range values are going to be. So that's everything you need to know in order to do heat maps. Again, this one's a little bit different in that we're applying the template onto the columns instead of the view, which is the way that we do the charting templates in all the other situations. In terms of thinking about your own data and your own organization, what you're interested in is especially a situation where you have lots of numbers. You have a grid of numbers and you're looking to identify trends where you may have a cluster of data based on a series or age group or other categories, and help you identify where it's hot, where you have high numbers, that might be a red, and where it's low, where you have low numbers, and that could be a blue. That's the type of concept that we're going for with heat maps. So I hope you found that interesting. I hope you have an idea for a data set and part of your organization's work processes where you can apply this template and show that data in an interesting way. Good luck.